The Esalomwa family came to San Diego in 2016 from a refugee camp in Tanzania. They say since moving to their two-bedroom apartment in City Heights, they've dealt with a broken stove and refrigerator and cockroaches in their apartment.
Back in Africa, we thought America was heaven.
America is not good.
But mold is still mold.
Where is the mold actually?
On a recent afternoon, Catherine Mendonça came to visit the Esalomwas and other families living on Polk Avenue. She's a community organizer with the San Diego Tenants Union.
A lot of them are refugee and of immigrant status or non-citizen status. A lot of them have resettled and have just gotten acclimated with what it's like to live in America as far as the routine, the schedule, and a lot of them aren't aware that there are rights with living in a home.
Nicole Johnson lives downstairs. She called the Tenants Union after getting eviction papers for not paying her rent. She says the people living here have been dealing with awful conditions and the managers responsible for her property are doing nothing to help.
We don't have a working stove. We don't have a working refrigerator. Their toilet was not on the ground properly, so where you could move it. The feces water was leaking from their ceiling on me and my daughter.
Mendonça says it's a common problem she sees with low-income and minority tenants, especially when there's a language barrier like with the Esalomwas. She says one of the top priorities of the Tenants Union is to notify renters of their rights.
People need to think of it more as a contract between two parties versus a landlord that is deciding everyone's fate. It's a mutual contract. When you pay each month, that means you and the property manager, landlord, etc., accepts that contract.
The Tenants Union also tries to serve as an advocate for renters when they have issues with their landlords. In this case, the properties on Polk Avenue are managed by Prime Asset Management. The owner made a site visit but left before our scheduled interview. He told me over the phone that he hadn't received any work orders from the upstairs tenants and that the issues with Nicole Johnson's apartment had been resolved. He said their company has an online work order system, but acknowledged that it might be difficult to navigate for tenants who don't speak English. Refugee resettlement agencies regularly have to deal with situations like these. Donna Duvin is the executive director of the International Rescue Committee in San Diego, the agency that resettled the Esalomwas.
I do think there's an element of this sense, too, that if they are expressing concerns about their living environment, and if that isn't well received, then that also is risking the safety and stability of their families.
She says during the first 6 months after placing a family in housing, they see them almost every day. Sometimes caseworkers make home visits, but usually the families come to the IRC's offices. Duvin says the IRC tries to educate families about their rights, but it's often hard for them to understand that as tenants, they can speak up about housing problems. Christopher Ridgway is a real estate attorney. He says he frequently deals with habitability issues with tenants and that it's a landlord's responsibility to resolve most problems in a timely manner. He says a landlord could be sued if they don't.
If the population that they're dealing with isn't likely going to sue them, what then?
Then it becomes a moral question. Really, it's either a business question or a moral question. What's going to motivate somebody?
Excuse me one second, sweetie. I gotta take some footage.
Back on Polk Avenue, Mendonça says legal help is among the services the tenant union offers as part of a $25 a year membership.
This is a beautiful community. It is so diverse with how many people of different backgrounds live here. And they deserve the same living conditions as anybody else living in the U.S., regardless if they know it or not.
Since we started working on the story, Prime Asset Management says they're not going to evict Nicole Johnson from her apartment. The IRC has also offered to find new housing for the Esalomwas. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.